Chapter 13 The Second Bomb. No one was in the kitchen of Shinhu's restaurant when the bomber set a tall can labeled monosodium glutamate behind similar cans on a shelf. The color-striped candle would burn down to the fuse at 6:30. Whoever was working there would be at the other end of the room. No one would be hurt. Due to the unfortunate damage to the coffee shop, Shinhu's restaurant is prepared to satisfy all dinner accommodations. Order down or ride up to the 5th floor, treat your taste buds to a scrumptious meal while feasting your eyes on the stunning snowscape before it melts away. Reasonable prices, too. Grace Wexler tacked her sign to the elevator wall as she rode up to her new job. She was going to be the seating hostess. "Where's the cook?" Mr. Hu shouted, meaning his wife. He found Madame Hu in the rear 4th-floor apartment kneeling before her bamboo trunk, fingering mementos from her childhood in China. He hurried her up to the kitchen, too hurried to find the words that would explain what was happening. Now where was that lazy son of his? Doug jogged in from a tiring workout on the stairs. How was he supposed to know the restaurant would open early? No one bothered telling him. "Some student you are. Anyone with a brain of an anteater could have figured out that. People are short of food. The coffee shop is closed for repairs. Stop arguing, go take a shower, and put on your busboy outfit. Get moving." "Don't you think you're rather hard on the boy?" Grace commented. "Somebody's got to give him a shove. If he had it his way, he'd do nothing but run." Hu replied between bites of chocolate, "You're not so easy on Angela, either." Angela? Angela was born good, the perfect child. As for the other one, well, it's not easy being a parent, Hu said woefully. You can say that again. Grace held her breath. Her husband would have done just that, said it again. But Mr. Hu only nodded and shared sympathy. What a gentleman. Only Mr. and Mrs. Theodorakis ordered down. The other tenants of Sunset Towers lined up at the reservation desk, waiting for Grace Windsor Wexler to lead the way. Oversized menus clutched in her arms, Grace felt the first proud strings of power rush up from her pedicured toes to the very top curl on her head. If Uncle Sam could pair off people, so could she. "You see your brother every day, Chris. How about eating with someone else for a change?" She wheeled the boy to a window table without waiting for an answer. It would have been a yes. The two cripples together, Sidel Kolaski thought. She'd show that high and mighty hostess. She'd show them all. She and Chris could have private jokes, too, and everybody would be sorry they weren't sitting with them. "Was Mugogipen?" Chris asked, baffled by the strange words on the menu. "I think it's boiled grasshopper." Sidel screwed up her face and Chris laughed. "Or chocolate-covered mousse." "French fry mousse," Chris offered. Now Sidel laughed. They both laughed heartily, but no one envied them. "Your brother seems to be enjoying Miss Pulaski." Theo nodded, awed by the beautiful Angela, 3 years older than he, so fair-skinned and blonde, so unattainable. Here he was sitting at the very same table with her, just the two of them, and he couldn't think of a single thing to say that wasn't stupid or childishly stupid. Usually the quiet one, Angela tried again. "Are you planning to go to college next year?" Theo nodded, then shook his head. "Say something, idiot." "I got a scholarship to Madison, but I'm not going. I'm going to work instead." What big, worried, sky-blue eyes. "The operation for Chris will be expensive." That was worse. Now she feels sorry for him. If Chris had been born that way, maybe it wouldn't be so bad, but he was a perfectly normal kid, a great kid, and he's smart, too. About 4 years ago, he started to get clumsy, just little things at first. "Perhaps my fiancé can help." Angela bit her lip. Theo was not asking for charity, and fiancé, what an old-fashioned, silly word. I went to college for a year. I wanted to be a doctor, but, well, we don't have much money as my mother pretends. Dad said he could manage if that's what I really wanted, but my mother said it was too difficult for a woman to get into medical school. Why was she jabbering like this? I just want to be a writer, Theo said. That really sounded like kid stuff. Would you go back to college if you won the inheritance? Angela looked down. It was a question she did not want to answer, or could not answer. Long before becoming a judge, Josie Joe Ford had decided to stop smiling. Smiling without good reason was demeaning. A serious face put the smiler on the defensive. A rare smile put a nervous witness at ease. Now she bestowed one of her rare smiles on the dressmaker. I'm so glad we have this chance to become acquainted, Mrs. Baumbach. I had so little time to chat with my guests last night. It was a wonderful party. Flora Baumbach appeared even smaller and rounder than she was as she sat twisting her napkin with her hands, accustomed to being busy. Was her face permanently creased from years of pleasing customers, or was a tragedy lurking behind that grin? Have you always specialized in wedding gowns? Mr. Baumbach and I had a shop for many years. Baumbach's for the bride and groom. Perhaps you've heard of it? I'm afraid not. The judge would have said no in any case to keep her witness talking. Perhaps you heard of Flora's bridal gowns? That's what I call my shop after my husband left. I don't know much about groom's clothes. They're mostly rentals anyway. Flora Baumbach lost her timidity. The judge let her chat away. I'm using heirloom lace on the bodice of Angela's gown. It's been in my family for 3 generations. I wore it at my wedding, and I dreamed that someday I'd have a daughter who would wear it too. But Rosalie didn't come along until I was in my 40s, and... The dressmaker stopped. Her lips tightened into an even wider grin. Angela will make such a beautiful bride. Funny how she reminds me of her. Angela reminds you of your daughter? The judge asked. Oh my, no. Angela reminds me of another young girl I made a wedding dress for. Violet Westing. The heavy charms on Sidel Pulaski's bracelet clinked and clunked as she raised a full fork and flourished it in a practiced ritual before aiming it at her open mouth. Chris's movements were even jerkier. She's a good person, he thought, but she thinks too much about herself. Maybe she never had anybody to love. Here, let me help you with some of this delicious sweet and sour ostrich. Their laughter drowned out the loud groan from another table where Turtle sat alone, a transistor radio plugged in her ear. The stock market had dropped another 12 points. I'm starved. Let's sit down to eat. Head held high, Grace Wexler led her husband across the restaurant. All I want is a corned beef sandwich, not a guided tour. Would you prefer to sit alone or with that young lady over there? I thought I was going to sit with you. Please be seated, Grace replied. Jimmy, I mean Mr. Who, will take your order shortly. Jake snatched the menu from his wife and watched her glide, gracefully he had to admit, to the reservation desk and whisper in Who's ear. Jimmy, she calls him. That's a fine kettle of fish, he exclaimed, then turned to his dinner companion. Fine kettle of fish. I'm so hungry, even that sounds good. And from the looks of this menu, that's probably what I'll get. I'm okay, Turtle replied, the final prices of actively traded stocks tumbling in her ear. Mr. Who waddled over. I'd recommend the striped bass. See, when I tell you, a kettle of fish. Turtle switched off the radio. She had heard enough bad news for one day. How about spare ribs done to a crisp? Who suggested, then lowered his voice. What's the point spread on the Packers game? See me later, Jake muttered. Go ahead and tell him, Daddy, Turtle said. I know you're a bookie. Can you stand on your legs? Sidel Pulaski asked. Can you walk at all? People never asked Chris those questions. They whispered them to his parents behind his back. No. Why? What better disguise for a thief or a murderer than a wheelchair? The perfect alibi. Chris enjoyed being taken for the criminal type. Now they really were friends. Were you notes? What? Oh, read you my notes? Soon, very soon. Sidel daintily touched the corners of her mouth with the napkin, pushed back her chair, and grabbed her polka-dot crutch. That was a superb meal. I must give my compliments to the chef. She rose, knocking the chair to the floor, and clumped toward the kitchen door. Where's she going? Angela, staring up to help her partner, was distracted by shouting in the corridor. Hello in there! Anybody home? Through the restaurant door came a bundled and booted figure. He danced in an elephantine jig, stomping on the snow carpet, flung a long woolen scarf from his neck, and yelled, Otis Amber is here! The roads are clear! That's when the bomb went off. Nobody move! Everybody stay where you are! Mr. Hu shouted as he rushed into the sizzling, crackling kitchen. Just a little mishap, Grace Wexler explained, taking her command post in the middle of the restaurant. Nothing to worry about. Eat up before your food gets cold. A cluster of red sparks hissed through the swinging kitchen door, kissed the ceiling, and rained a shimmering shower down around the petrified hostess. Fireflies of color faded into her honey-blonde hair and scattered into ashes at her feet. Nothing to worry about, she repeated hoarsely. Just celebrating the Chinese New Year, Otis Amber shouted, adding one of his hee-hee-hee cackles. Mr. Hu leaned through the kitchen doorway, his shiny, straight black hair, even shinier and straighter, plastered to his forehead, water dribbling down his moon-shaped face. Call an ambulance! There's been a slight accident! Angela dashed past Mr. Hu into the kitchen. Jake Wexler made an emergency telephone call and sent Theo to the lobby to direct the ambulance attendants. Why are you standing there like a statue? Hu shouted at his son. You told everybody to stay where they were, Doug said. You're not everybody! Madame Hu tried to make the injured woman as comfortable as possible on the debris-strewn floor. Angela found the sequined spectacles, wiped off the wet crystalline mess, and placed them on her partner's nose. Don't look so worried, Angela. I'm all right. Sidel was in pain, but she wanted attention on her own terms, not as a hapless, foolish victim of fate. Looks like a fracture, an ambulance attendant said, feeling her right ankle. Careful how you lift her. The secretary suppressed a grunt. It was bad enough being drenched by the overhead sprinkler and draped with noodles. Now they were carrying her right past them all. Grace pulled Angela away from the stretcher. You can visit your friend in a few days. Angela, Sidel moaned. Pride or not, she wanted her partner at her side. Angela stood between her determined mother and her distraught partner, paralyzed by the burden of choice. Go with your friend, Angie Pye, Jake Wexler said. Other voices chimed in. Go with Pulaski. Grace realized she had lost. Perhaps you should go to the hospital, Angela. It's been so long since you've seen your Dr. D. She winked mischievously, but only Flora Baumbach smiled back. The policeman and the fire inspector visiting the scene agreed that it was nothing more than a gas explosion. Good thing the sprinkler system worked, or Mr. Hu might have had a good fire. What kind of fire is a good fire? Hu wanted to know. And what about the burglaries? Grace Wexler asked. I'm with the bomb squad, the policeman explained. You'll have to call the robbery detail for that. And what about the coffee shop accident? Theo asked. Also a gas explosion. Jake Wexler asked about the odds of having 2 explosions in 2 days in the same building. Nothing unusual, the fireman replied, especially in weather like this. No ventilation, snow packed over the ducts. He instructed the tenants to air out their kitchens before lighting ovens. Mrs. Wexler turned up the heat in her apartment and kept the windows open for the next 3 days. She did not want anything blowing up during Angela's party. But the Wexler apartment was exactly where the bomber planned to set the next bomb. Chapter 14. Pears Repaired. The snowplows plowed and a warm sun finished the job of freeing the tenants of Sunset Towers and the figure in the Westinghouse from their wintry prisons. Angela, disguised in her mother's old beaver coat and hat and in Turtle's red boots, was the first one out. Following Siddell's instructions, she hastily searched under the hood of every car in the parking lot. Nothing was there. Nothing, that is, that didn't seem to belong to an automobile engine. So much for good gracious from Hood's space. Next came Flora Baumbach. Behind her, a bootless Turtle tiptoed through puddles. Miracle of miracles, the rusty and battered Chevy started, but the dressmaker's luck went downhill from there. First, the hood of the car flew up in the middle of traffic. Then, after 2 hours of watching mysterious symbols move across the lighted panel on the wall of the broker's office, her eyes began to cross. After 3 hours, the grin faded from her face. "I'm getting dizzy," she said, shifting her position on the hard wooden folding chair. "And worse yet, I've got a splinter in my fanny." "Look, there goes one of our stocks," Turtle replied. SEA, 5 shares, $8.50. GM, 5,000 for $67. LVI, 32 1/4. MGC, 2 for $14. T, 1,000, 65 1/4. AMI, 3 for 19 1/4. I, 8, 22 1/2. Flora Baumbach caught a glimpse of SEA, 5 shares, $8.50. As it was about to magically disappear off the edge of the moving screen. "Oh my, I've forgotten what that means." Turtle sighed. "It means 500 shares of SEA was traded at $8.50 a share." "What did we pay?" "Never mind. Just write down the prices of our stocks as they cross the tape like I'm doing. Once school opens, it's all up to you." Turtle did not want to tell her partner that they had bought 200 shares of SEA at $15.25 a share. On that stock alone, they had a loss of $1,350, not counting commissions. It took nerves of steel to play the stock market. "The Mercedes is wiped clean and shiny like new," the doorman boasted. His face reddened around old scars as a rejected folded $5 bill. "No tips, Judge. Please, not after all you've done for the wife and me." The judge had given him the entire $10,000. J.J. Ford pocketed the bill, and to make amends for her thoughtless gesture, asked the doorman about his family. Sandy perched on the edge of a straight-backed chair, adjusted his round wire-framed glasses, repaired at the bridge with adhesive tape across his broken nose, and told about his children. 2 boys still in high school, 1 girl married and expecting my 3rd grandchild. Her husband just lost his job, so they all moved in with us. Another daughter who works part-time as a typist. She plays the piano real good. And 2 sons who work in a brewery." "It must have been difficult supporting such a large family," the judge said. "Not so bad. I picked up odd jobs here and there after I got fired from the Westing plant for just trying to organize the union, but mostly I boxed. I wasn't no middleweight contender, but I wasn't bad either. Got my face smashed up a few times too many, though. Still get some pretty bad headaches, and my brain gets sort of fuzzy. Some dummy of a partner you got stuck with, huh, Judge?" "We'll do just fine, partner." Judge Ford's attempt at familiarity fell flat. "I did try to phone you, but your name was not listed." "We don't have no phone no more. Couldn't afford it with the kids making so many calls. But I did make some headway on our clues. Want to see?" Sandy removed the paper from the inside of his cap and placed it on the desk. Judge Ford noticed a flask protruding from the back pocket of his uniform, but his breath smelled of peppermint. The clues as figured out by Alexander McSuthers. Skies am shining brother. Skies, Sykes, Dr. Sykes witnessed the will, am, brother, Amber Otis, shining, Shin, the middle name of James Shinhu, or what turtle kicks, brother, Chris or Theo Theodorakis. Remarkable, the judge commented to Sandy's delight. However, we are looking for one name, not 6. Gee, Judge, I forgot, Sandy said dejectedly. Judge Ford told him about Theo's proposal, but Sandy refused to go along. It seems too easy, the clues adding up to one message, especially for a shrewd guy like Westing. Let's stick it out together, just the 2 of us. After all, I got me the smartest partner of them all. Shallow flattery for the big tipper, the judge thought. McSuthers was not a stupid man. If only he was less ubiquitous and less of a gossip. The doorman scratched his head. What I can't figure out, Judge, is why I'm one of the heirs. Sam Westing just up and died, and there's no murderer. Unless Sam Westing is out to get somebody from his grave. I agree with you entirely, Mr. McSuthers. What we have to find out is who these 16 heirs are, and which one, as you say, was Westing out to get. Sandy beamed. They were going to play it his way. What you need is an advertising campaign. What I need is my half of the $10,000. $5,000 is what I estimate the redecorating and the newspaper ads will cost you. Get out of here, get out! Grace stared at Who's smooth, broad face, at the devilish tufts of eyebrows so high above those flashing eyes, and then she turned her back and walked out. Sometimes she wondered about that man. No, he couldn't be the murderer. He couldn't even kill the water bug in the sink this morning. Grace spun around to see if she was being followed on the footstepped, hushing carpet in the 3rd-floor hall. No one was there, but she heard voices. They were coming from the kitchen. It was nothing, just Otis Amber shouting at Crow, something about losing their clues. I remember them, Otis, Crow replied in a soft voice. She felt strangely at peace. Just this morning she had been given the chance to hide her love in Angela's bag. The big tapestry shoulder bag she carries next to her heart. Now she must pray the boy comes back. I remember them too. That's not the point, Otis Amber argued. What if somebody else finds them? Crow, are you listening to me, Crow? No, but Grace Wexler was listening. Really, Mr. Amber, can't you find another time to discuss your affairs with my cleaning woman? And where are you going, Crow? Crow was buttoned up in a black moth-eaten winter coat. A black shawl covered her head. It's freezing in here. Otis Amber shut the window. Grace opened the window. The last thing I need is a gas explosion, she said peevishly. Boom, he replied. The 2 women were so startled that the delivery boy sneaked up on the unsuspecting for the rest of the week, shouting, Boom! Besides shouting, Boom! Otis Amber delivered groceries from the shopping center to Sunset Towers, and back and forth to and fro. Not only did the tenants have to restock their bare shelves, they had to add Westing paper products by the gross to their orders. Idiots. Just because the will said buy Westing paper products, he muttered, hefting a bulky bag from the compartment attached to his bike. Even Crow was using Westing disposable diapers to polish the silver and Westing paper towels to scrub the floors. Is that what happened to their clues? Poor Crow. She's taking this game harder than he expected. She'd been acting strange again. Boom! Otis Amber shouted as the intern hurried by. Idiot, muttered Denton Deer. Denton Deer paced the floor. Listen, kid, I'd like to help you, but I'm only an intern specializing in plastic surgery. It would be different if you wanted a nose job or a facelift. He had meant to be amusing. It sounded cruel. Chris had not asked for charity. All he wanted was to play the game with the intern. All the intern wanted was half of the $10,000. I hear your brother suggested sharing clues. Sounds like a fine idea. No response. Maybe the kid thinks I'm the murderer. The tenants must think so, the way they all peered over their shoulders. And that delivery boy shouting like that. Why me? I'm a doctor. I took an oath to save lives, not take them. I'm a very busy man, Chris. I have lots of sick people depending on me. Oh well. Plowing his fingers through his stringy mouse-brown hair to keep it out of his eyes, when would he find time for a haircut? He seated himself next to the wheelchair. The clues are in my locker. What were they? The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. For plain, grain, shed. Chris spoke slowly. He had practiced his recitation over and over, hour after lonely hour. Grain, oats, Otis Amber, Ford, shed. She, Ford. Ford lives in 4D. Ford? Apartment 4D? Good thinking, Chris. The intern rose. Is that all? Chris decided not to tell him about the limper on the lawn, not until the next time. His partner would have to visit him a next time, and a next time, as long as he didn't sign the check. Now, about signing the check, Denton Deer said. Chris shook his head. No. On a bench in the lobby, Angela embroidered her trousseau, waiting for Denton. Dad had tried to teach her to drive, but she was too timid, he too impatient. Why bother with driving lessons, her mother said. Anyone as pretty as you can always find a handsome young man to chauffeur you. She should have insisted. She should have said no, just once to her mother, just once. It was too late now. Theo came in with an armload of books. Hi, Angela. Hey, I found that quotation, or rather, the librarian found it, may God thy gold refine. Really? Angela thought it unnecessary to remind him that it was Flora Baumback and Turtle who had asked about the quotation, not she. Oh, what lush lips and what white teeth, what fine, shiny hair. Theo fumbled between the pages of a chemistry book for the index card. On it was written a third verse of America the Beautiful. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine. Theo had begun reading the refrain and ended up singing. He shyly laughed off his foolishness. I guess it doesn't have anything to do with the money or the will, just Uncle Sam's patriotism popping up again. Thank you, Theo. Angela stuffed her embroidery in the tapestry bag on seeing Denton Deer rush off the elevator. Hello, Dr. Deer. How about a game of chess? Let's go, the intern said, ignoring Theo. Sandy opened the front door for the couple, whistling America the Beautiful. The doorman was a good whistler, thanks to his chipped front tooth. I can't drive you home. I'm on duty tonight. I'll take a cab. Why must you go back to the hospital? Your crazy partner isn't dying, you know. She's not crazy. She made up her so-called wasting disease. I call that crazy. Nothing was wrong with her legs until the explosion in the Chinese restaurant. You're wrong. First you asked me to look in on her. Now you don't want my opinion. Anyhow, I called in a psychiatrist. Maybe you should talk to him too. I've never seen you so troubled. What's wrong? The wedding dress isn't ready? The guest list is too long? You'll have to cope with much more important matters once we're married. Unless you don't want to get married. Is that it? Angela twisted the engagement ring her mother made her wear in spite of the rash. No, she did not want to get married. Not right away. But she couldn't say it. She couldn't tell him. Not like that. Denton would be so hurt. Her mother, the engagement was announced in the newspaper, the wedding gown, the shower. But once they found out she wasn't their perfect Angela. How long had she been sitting here in the hospital corridor? A man in a business suit, the psychiatrist, came out of Siddell's room. "You must be Angela," he said. How had Siddell described her? A pretty young thing? "I hear you're going to marry one of our interns." She was going to get married, her one claim to fame. "How is Miss Pulaski, doctor?" "Do you mean she is crazy?" "No, no more or less than anybody else in town." "But the crippling disease, she made that up." "So what? The woman was lonely and wanted some attention, so she did something about it. And quite creatively, too. Those painted crutches are a touch of genius." "Is that normal? I mean, it's not insane to shock people into noticing who you are." The doctor patted Angela's cheek, as though she were a child. No one was hurt by her little deception. Now go in and say hello to your friend. "Hello, Siddell." Without makeup, without jewelry, clothed only in white hospital gown, she looked older, softer. She looked like a sad and homely human being. "You talked to the doctors?" "It's a simple fracture," Angela replied. "What else?" Siddell turned her face to the wall. "The doctor says that your disease is incurable, but you could have a remission lasting 5 years or even more if you take good care of yourself and don't overdo it." "The doctor said that?" "Maybe a few people could be trusted." "Did you bring my makeup? I must look a mess." In the overstuffed tapestry bag, under Siddell's cosmetic case, Angela found a letter. It was a strange letter, written in tense and rigid hand. "Forgive me, my daughter. God bless you, my child. Delight in your love, and the devil take Dr. dear. Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? The time draws near." Taped at the bottom were 2 clues. "Thy beautiful